Hello and welcome back again. In this video we'll continue to look at the axis orientation and work through a series of exercises that will help us figure out the difference between absolute and incremental coordinates. Now this exercise is similar to the last exercise, but the various positions have been changed. Let's work out the absolute coordinates for position 1 through 9. Now absolute coordinates are measured from the 0 position. The origin x0, y0 is located at the center of the grid. So our origin is x0, y0. Now for position 1, we're 1, 2, 3 squares along the x-axis and 1, 2, 3, 4 below the y-axis. So for position 1, x is positive 3 in the x, and for the y, minus 4. Now let's figure out the remaining absolute coordinates by counting up the grid squares, and what we need to do is remember to work out if it's a positive or negative value. So on to position 2. So if we look at position 2, we're just to the right of the y-axis, so it's a positive value, it's 2 squares, so for position 2 x is 2. Now the y, position 2 is below the x-axis, so the y value is going to be a negative amount. So let's count the squares up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for position 2, the y is negative 7. Now moving on to position 3. Now we're to the left side of the y-axis, so the x value is going to be negative, and we are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 squares. So for position 3, x is minus 4. Now what about the y coordinate? Once again we're below the x-axis, so it's going to be a negative value, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares again. So for position 3, x is minus 4 and y is minus 7. Now on to position 4. Now again, the x is a negative value, 1 square, so x is minus 1. And the y value, that's minus as well. We've got 2 squares here, and it's y minus 2. So for position 4, x is minus 1 and y minus 2. Now let's move on to position 5. Now we're the left-hand side of the y-axis, so it's going to be a negative x value. And how many squares have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our x value is minus 7. And let's check out the y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Positive y. So for position 5, x is minus 7 and y is positive 5. Now on to position 6. So the x value, we just got 1 square here, so x is minus 1. Now the y, we're 2 squares up, so x is minus 1 and y is positive 2 for position 6. Now let's check out 7. So we're to the right of the y-axis, so the x value is going to be positive, and we're at 1, 2, 3 squares. So for position 7, x is positive 3, and the y, we're 2 squares up, and the y is positive 2. So for position 7, x is 3, and y is 2. And here we go on our journey off up to position 8. So the x is going to be positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the x, and the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, same thing, 7. So for position 8, x is 7 and y is 7 as well. Now our last one, position 9. So the x value is going to be a positive, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So x is 7. Now the y is going to be a negative value. We're below the x-axis. So 1, 2, 3. And we've got a value of minus 3 in the y. So for position 9, x is 7 and y is minus 3. Now, changing gears again, for this exercise we're going to figure out the incremental coordinates for positions 1 through 9. Now, G91 is the code to let the machine know that the coordinates are in incremental. And remember, with incremental we are figuring out the distance from the last position to the next endpoint. And we also need to identify if it's a positive or negative direction. So here we are, starting off at the origin. So the origin to position 1, it's 3 squares along the x-axis and 4 down along the y-axis. So the x will be positive and the y-axis will be a negative value. So from the origin to 1 we move incrementally 3 in the x and negative 4 in the y. Next up, let's check out 1 to 2. Now imagine if you were walking from position 1 to position 2, how much would you move in the x-axis? Well, that would be negative 1. We're moving 1 square and we're moving in the negative x direction. Now, how much would you move in the y-axis from position 1 down to position 2? Well, that would be a value of negative 3. So from 1 to 2, x is negative 1 and y is negative 3. Now let's figure out the remaining incremental values. So let's check out 2 to 3. So from 2 to 3 we're moving in the x negative direction. And how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our x incremental move is x minus 6. Now imagine if you were stone cold sober and walked from 2 to 3, how much would you move in the y-axis? A big fat 0. So from 2 to 3, x is minus 6 and y is 0. Now we're off to 3 to 4. So let's figure out how much we're going to move incrementally in the x. So 1, 2, 3 squares, and we're moving in the x positive direction. So we have a value of plus 3. Now what about the y? Now we're moving up. How many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're moving in the positive direction. So from 3 to 4, x is plus 3 and y is plus 5. Next up, we're moving over from 4 over to position 5. Now the x is going to be a negative amount, so let's count up the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from 4 to 5, x is going to be negative 6 in the x direction. And what about the y? So from 4 to 5, we're moving up in the positive y direction. Let's count the squares up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So from 4 to 5, x is minus 6 and y is plus 7. Next up, 5 to 6. So the x value, we're going to be moving in the x positive direction. How many squares? So let's figure it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So x positive 6. Now what about the y? Plus or minus? Well, we're moving in the y negative direction. How many squares? 1, 2, 3. So we got negative 3 for the y. So from 5 to 6, x is positive 6 and y is minus 3. Okay, let's check out 6 to 7. So 6 to 7, we're moving in the plus x direction. How much? 1, 2, 3, 4. So from 6 to 7, x is 4. And 6 to 7, how much do we move in the y? Big fat 0. Alright, what about 7 now? Up to 8. So for the x, we're moving in the positive direction. And how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4. So x will be 4. And likewise for the y, we're moving in the positive direction. And how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from 7 over to 8, incrementally we move 4 in x and 5 in y. Now let's check out 8 down to position 9. So from 8 to 9, incrementally, how much do we move in the x? Absolutely nothing. Big fat 0. Now what about the y coordinate? So as we move down, we're moving in the y negative direction. So let's count the squares up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's negative 10. So from 8 to 9, x is 0 and y is minus 10. Now what about 9 back to the origin? So we've got negative 7 in the x. So we're moving in the negative x direction and we're moving over 7 squares. Now what about the y? Now we're moving up, we're moving in the positive y direction and 1, 2, 3 squares. So we're looking good. Now moving on now to another exercise that you can complete on your own. You'll find this exercise in the workbook in Lesson 1, Exercise 3. You can check your answers for the coordinates in the next video. So for the first part of this exercise, you're working out the absolute coordinates for positions 1 through 9. Now absolute coordinates are measured from the 0 position. The origin, x0, y0, is located at the center of the grid. Now, and for the second part of this exercise, you're going to figure out the incremental coordinates for positions 1 through 9. Now, with incremental, we're figuring out the distance from the last position to the next endpoint. And we need to identify if it's a positive or negative direction. Now, this completes this video. I'll be talking with you soon. And hey, no peeking at the answers.